Hello again. Welcome back to the channel. Glad you could join me. So, in thinking about the book that I wanted to present today, I decided on Dune Messiah by Frank Herbert. Now, I'm not sure about how people have received this in general. At least, I can look up what the historical reception has been to the book, but I can't say that the people that I've talked to, if they read Dune, they may not have gone beyond Dune. I could be wrong. There could be many people who, when they found out that Denis Villeneuve was doing another Dune series, that they were going to get in on that and start reading everything, and so we could have had more people read Dune Messiah. I'm not entirely sure, but it seemed to me that most people have read that a lot of people have read Dune, and that they haven't necessarily gone on and finished the series. Again, I could be wrong about that. It's kind of hard to tell. I wasn't really aware for a very long time about anything past Dune. And most of that was because of the David Lynch movie back in the 80s. Pretty sure that's when it was. You can check. Nope, not there. David Lynch, 1984. Yeah. So 1984, Dune came out. I watched part of it with my dad when I was younger and was like, oh, this is really, really weird. And it wasn't until later I watched the full thing. And it wasn't until even later than that that I read Dune. And I actually have read quite a few books in the Dune series now. I've actually read the continuations that were done by Brian Herbert and I don't remember who his co-author was off the top of my head. Anyway, it wasn't until the Sci-Fi Channel put together their Dune miniseries that anything beyond Dune had ever made it, as far as I knew, into visual broadcast. So we have the David Lynch version of Dune, and then the Sci-Fi Channel comes out, and they did stick much more closely to the actual plot of the books. Not necessarily a great thing in some cases. Some of it was possibly the way they adapted it. Kind of hard to tell. There were some parts of it that were a bit weird. And I'm talking about Dune here. So let's get back to Dune Messiah. So, Paul, if you haven't read Dune itself, warning, spoiler alert. Paul Atreides, he is now the Emperor. He has been the Emperor for 12 years, and he's been ruling from Arrakis. Now, the Fremen, the natives of the planet Arrakis, have gone out to the other planets of the Empire and have waged a jihad in Paul's name. And they've killed 61 billion people in the Empire. Now, Paul didn't want this. Paul actually was trying very hard to avoid some of this. But because of his ability to see the future, this is not necessarily even the worst possible outcome for the future. It's just one of the possible outcomes. And Paul is still trying to steer humanity in the course that he believes will be of most benefit to it. At the same time, the Bene Gesserit, the Spacing Guild, and the Tlaxu are doing everything they can to undermine Paul. Obviously, the Guild, who relies heavily on spice, is very worried about what Paul is going to do, because he controls Arrakis, and because he controls Arrakis, he controls the spice. The Bene Gesserits don't like it because their perfect being is no longer under their control, never was under their control. And then we have the Tleilaxu, who nobody knows really what they're up to. They are experts in genetics and cloning, and they just are doing their own thing. You never know with them. So Princess Irulan has been helping the Bene Gesserits, and Paul, who is married to Irulan, won't touch her, won't go near her, because he is completely devoted to Chani, his concubine, which was a weird thing to see in the movie by Denis Villeneuve. In the books, Chani was completely okay with the arrangement. In the movie, she was ticked off that Paul was marrying Princess Irulan for political purposes and went off into the desert on a sandworm. Yeah, anyway. So the Bene Gesserits are trying to keep Paul from having more children, and in fact, Irulan has been giving Chani contraceptives. And Paul, because he can see the future, doesn't want her to get pregnant because he foresees that will cause her death. And then we have as I said, they're all conspiring together to bring Paul down. And one of the things that the Tleilaxu do is they give Paul a Gola, a gift. Now, a Gola is a clone. And this clone looks exactly like Duncan, Idaho. And it has been given it doesn't know that it's Duncan, Idaho. It doesn't have Duncan, Idaho personality or memories. It is named Hate, and it is just a clone of Duncan, Idaho. Duncan, Idaho having died in the first book. And Paul accepts this gift, knowing that it is kind of the velvet glove that shouldn't necessarily say velvet glove, but it is the gift that is concealing the poisoned dagger kind of thing. He knows that this gift is a double-edged sword from his enemies, and in fact, the Gola has been conditioned to kill Paul if given a specific command. Now, one of the other things that happens in the book that is rather interesting is Paul is blinded. They use a device, a nuclear device that blinds Paul. Now, normally this would, because Paul is so closely intertwined with the Fremen, they believe that this will signify the end, because Paul will either alienate the Fremen by not obeying their tenets, which is someone who is blind wanders out into the desert so as not to be a burden on their tribe, or Paul wanders out into the desert and that allows the conspirators to take back the Empire. Only thing is, Paul can see the future. He can see the future with such detail that it's almost as if he still has eyes, which really confuses everyone. Anyway, I did like Dune Messiah. This is the point, in my opinion, when Frank Herbert's Dune saga starts going off the rails, in my opinion. Dune was it is an amazing book, and it is the best. And if I had to pick out of all the books of the Dune series, if I could only read one and I could never read any of the others, I would always pick Dune. It is by far, hands down, the best. The other ones, not quite so much. However, Dune Messiah is still good. It's still a solid book. It's just, as I said, it's where it starts, in my opinion. It starts losing what made Dune great. Anyway, that's it for today. Let me know if you've read Dune Messiah. Let me know if you've read more books in the Dune series. I have met a number of people who have read Dune, and that's the only one that they've read. They've never read beyond that. And I actually haven't met very many people who have read any of the stuff beyond what Frank Herbert wrote. Apparently he did intend to write more, but he passed away. And it wasn't until years later that his son Brian was going through his effects and found a safety deposit box that his father had, and in it was information on how he wanted the series continued. Whether or not that is a true story, I don't know. That's just something that I've heard. Anyway, that's it for today. Like, share, subscribe, all the rest of that stuff. And until next time, enjoy what you're reading.